Elsewhere in Washington, the legal battle over Donald Trump's impeachment trial is heating up, with House Democrats arguing the former president bears unmistakable responsibility for the deadly January 6th Capitol riot. In an 80-page brief, Democrats blame Trump, saying he summoned a mob to Washington, extorted them into a frenzy, and aimed them like a loaded cannon down Pennsylvania Avenue. Democrats point to this Trump rally just before the riot. Trump's legal team has countered that, saying the president exercised his First Amendment right and that a Senate conviction would be unconstitutional since Donald Trump is no longer in office. All right, I want to bring in my panel now. We have Republican strategist Rina Shah, political commentator Avis Jones-DeWeever, and Nadia Brown, associate political science professor. Good morning to all of you. Glad you could be with us. Nadia, I'm going to start with you today. What do you make of Donald Trump's lawyer's argument that this is unconstitutional because he's not the president anymore?
This is a very fine needle to thread that the lawyers are trying to make. Indeed, President Trump would be the only person to be convicted in a Senate trial for impeachment. And the Constitution is a little unclear, right? What can a president be impeached after he has left office? This is a legal argument. However, what we see the lawyers are doing, they're sidestepping the facts. They say that Trump did incite this riot, and they're not trying to litigate that. What they're trying to say is this constitutional?
Avis, your take on Trump now being a private citizen and how that may complicate things?
This, to me, it doesn't complicate anything. The reality is we cannot set a precedent where you can have a traitor incite a revolution, and an attempted insurrection against this nation by inciting hundreds of terrorists to storm the Capitol building, killing 5 people, one of which is a police officer, and then be able to get out scot-free just because he was allowed to run out the clock, because at that time, the Senate Majority Leader chose to not call back the Senate in order to hold the trial. The reality is that Trump needs to face consequences for his actions. He has already been impeached. He was impeached while he was a sitting president. This only completes that circle by allowing the trial to go forward, after which, if he is convicted, which, I don't hold up much hope for that because I don't trust the morals of the Republican Party. But at the end of the day, if he were to be convicted, he could be barred from ever running for office again. This, to me, is a false flag that his particular team is raising, though there's not been any president who's been convicted post his actual term. There has been at least one other instance in our history in which a corrupt official was, in fact, impeached and convicted after he no longer had that seat. And so, to me, that is a moot point that's being put to the place in order to sort of save him, because he has no legitimate ground to stand on as a result of his specific actions.
Rina, as Avis points out, 17 Republicans need to come forward and side with the Democrats on this in order for the president to be convicted. Why, when looking at those pictures of what happened, knowing that people died, are Republicans so hesitant to take a stand on this? Even Mitch McConnell seems to be changing his view on what happened on January 6th and the president's role in it.
Well, it's human nature that as time goes on, memories do fade. And as the trial would be closer to the events of January 6th, one would hope that it would still be fresh in the minds of these senators. But I'm struck by the unique nature of this upcoming trial. And it's that these senators are not just jurors in this trial. They're literal eyewitnesses. So this matters here because Senate Republicans who are questioning the constitutionality here, yes, it's unprecedented for an American president to be convicted after he leaves office, but not in lower level elected or appointed offices. And so that's what Democrats are citing. They're citing the 1876 impeachment trial of a Secretary of War during the Grant administration. And that secretary resigned to avoid impeachment, but the Senate still held a trial. So So when we're talking here to really the biggest question here, were President Trump's actions, his speech and his call to action on January 6th, covered by his First Amendment rights? And House managers, impeachment managers, are making the case that First Amendment rights don't apply in an impeachment proceeding. So what we've really got here is the argument for framers' intent versus textualism. And now my opinion on this entire matter is about Trump's actions. And did they subvert election results, his actions to try to subvert election results? Excuse me there. It started before a single ballot was even cast. He set the stage, which led to the eventual siege of the Capitol on January 6th. So the intent and the planning, plus his lack of intervention on January 6th when they were breaking in, that's what makes this all so clear to me, that the president deserves to be convicted, because this was calculated. And if this was a regular court of law, and if this was a private citizen, they would be charged as an accessory to murder.
Let's turn to Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's a meeting this afternoon with House Democrats. They will be looking at her fate, as well as Liz Cheney from Wyoming. Nadia, there seems to be more upset over Liz Cheney being vocal about President Trump than there is about the crazy stuff coming out of Marjorie Taylor Greene's mouth. What are their options here? And does this just highlight the soul searching that is going on about what this party, Republican Party, stands for?
Yes, this highlights the soul searching that the Republican Party stands for. We know that the president's party usually loses seats in the midterm election, so this is really a foreshadow to what we expect to see in 2022. Will the fractions of the party that are more aligned towards President Trump and Trumpism, will they be the ones that will have control over the House? And we see this in the ways that Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy has already positioned himself to be close to Trump, saying that he wants to work really hard with him to take over the House in 2022, and then he will become the Speaker once Nancy Pelosi, or if Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats lose. And so the Republicans have a really fine road to hoe here, right? They want to make sure that they don't alienate Trump's base, particularly if they're thinking about recapturing the House in 2022, and sacrificing people that are like Liz Cheney, who have traditional conservative values and beliefs, might not be the future of the party. And if the long game is on how do they win more seats to retake the House, it might be people that look like and talk like Marjorie Taylor Greene and not Liz Cheney.
Avis, can Republicans have it both ways?
No, they can't. They have to make a choice here. This is a moment in which you have to either walk the talk that you've been talking for decades. I mean, this is supposedly the party of fiscal responsibility. This is supposedly the party of traditional conservative values. What we are seeing with the Marjorie Taylor Greenes is the wacko party. These are the people who say things like, that 9/11 was a fake, that it didn't really exist, that babies who were mowed down in school and teenagers who were killed in school were not really killed in school, that all of that was a fake. So these are people also who harass survivors of those terrorist type of activities. Yeah. And so, this party has to make a choice. Are you going to be a party that is run by some crazy, wacko conspiracy theories who radicalize people, radicalize them to the point of violence and killing, because this is the same ilk that led to the storming of the Capitol? Or are you not? And another thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene, was she one of these people that was involved with allowing some of these individuals to tour the Capitol the day before this insurrection happened? I mean, there needs to be more investigation, and hopefully this will come out in the trial, about what other sort of activities happened by several Republicans, not just her, that aided and abetted the revolution, the attempted coup that we saw with the storming of the Capitol that led to several deaths. And not only does she need to be held to account, all of them need to be held to account.
Rina, last word to you today.
those very things that Avis is talking about, I fundamentally believe that we will not know everything unless a commission is set up, similar to that of the 9/11 Commission. So yes, we need a January 6th commission to tell us all the facts of what went down on January 6th, what was planned, what actually happened. Because right now we live in an era that's perfectly epitomized in Marjorie Taylor Greene. Disinformation is rampant here in the United States, and it's the world over. But frankly, let me get back to a very solid point here. And it's because I've made my career in the Republican Party that I must admit, this story of Marjorie Taylor Greene and QAnon conspiracy theorists, now a sitting member of Congress, it's actually a story that's more telling of the GOP in its current form. And it's a form that I've sadly watched it trend towards, which is win at all costs, money over everything. And in this case, it's just so despicable. This is literally established members of Congress who once upon a time had solid reputations as public servants who are now associating themselves with bottom of the barrel folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are anti-democratic. She's fundamentally anti-democratic because she intends to sow chaos and doubt in the minds of her fellow Americans. And look, I get it. Dissent is democratic, but this is about chaos and doubt intended to topple institutions that have long been trusted and established in our nation. And it's for no other reason but to elevate herself as some sort of leader of a movement. And if Republicans don't repudiate it now, if they don't wake up and smell the coffee, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, if she were in private office anywhere in corporate America, she wouldn't just be shown the door for the death threat she's made on her own colleagues. She'd be escorted out by security and investigated by law enforcement. So stripping her of a committee assignment for Education Committee is the least that the Republican Party would do. But they're scared to do it because they know money is tied to her.
But she was voted in. People voted her in. I got to go. We're out of time. Great talk today, ladies. We'll see you again next week. Just ahead.